Welcome back to another episode of the 86'd Life. Today I'm joined in the studio with Siempre Algo's chef and owner, Brian Hammond.
Hello, hello.
And his soon-to-be front-of-house manager, Will Wood.
Hello.
How you guys doing? Thanks for joining me.
Super great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having us, Neil.
Pretty pumped for this episode, I'm not gonna lie. One, I'm excited to actually talk more with Siempre Algo and see what you got going on over there. And two, I mean, the dynamic, too, of opening a restaurant. Everyone's always kind of excited by the idea, but you don't kind of look at really the fear and kind of the anxiety of it, the fact that you're branching into a completely unknown venture. I mean, it's exciting, but it's still a giant question mark of, is it going to be successful? Is it not going to be successful? It's a stressful endeavor, especially on your end. I mean, you got all the capital invested in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I feel like is there's stress and there's a lot of unknown, but I think that if you wanted to do things that you knew, you would do things that you know. That's all available. So I think that we have a lot of restaurants in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of new restaurants. There's a lot of old restaurants. There are a lot of good restaurants. So there's no need to open a restaurant just for the sake of it. So I think once, and it's been a while that I've had it in mind what I want to do, how I want to do it, and those things always kind of grow and evolve. But it's the time, and I think that there's a lot more excitement than nervousness. It's nerve-wracking. I won't lie, I do sometimes wake up at 4 in the morning just gasping. Like
the cold sweats.
I think it was 3 weeks ago, and I had spec'd all the equipment for the restaurant, and it's a lot of equipment, it's a lot of money, and I had the dish machine all figured out a year ago, and there's like the little stainless shelf that feeds into it, feeds out the little sprayer. I hadn't thought about the sprayer and the little and the little table there.
Yeah.
And I just woke up like, oh my God, like they're plumbing the building right now for that. And I went to ask them, like, did anybody think of that? And they're like, no, you're the guy that thinks of that. So the only time I've done this before, relatively on my own, it was retrofitting an existing place. This is a complete rebuild. So you really learn how little you know when you're
at the same time too, though, I mean, it's gotta be a good thing because then you can absolutely put everything you want in there though too. So that is one plus that I'd imagine.
No, I think that a critical piece of this whole thing is that it's everything has its inverse attached to it. You're always, hey, the good news is I can do whatever I want. The bad news is I might want something very bad.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, but should you? It's kind of finding you want to synthesize the best pieces of what's already been done and fit that in with the things that you think you know how to do better, and so it requires experience, and it requires that you've paid attention previously, but it also requires why do this? And so for me, clearly there's that little piece of arrogance that says I know a better way to build a mousetrap. So then we move forward, and that's what brings us
now,
there.
I'm curious, so why, I mean, we've talked about on the show a little bit, not too extensively, but why the Northside? I mean, yeah, you live up the street, but ultimately, but Northside's not, it's not Lawrenceville, it's not East End by any means. There's not a whole lot of foot traffic coming through East Ohio.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
sure, but and that's a thing. But I think that when we had my wife Terry and I, we lived in San Diego, came back to Pittsburgh. We went to Chicago for years and then came back to work and to open and run Echo, which is where we met Will many years ago. And the minute we were closing Echo, it was against my expectation because I grew up as like suburban kid, but I wound up loving the environment of being in the city. And Chicago was the one that nailed it. Like it was the happiest I've been, certainly in my adult life, was living there, being in that community, the vibrant nature of it. And I think that, so once we weren't obligated to be in the suburbs, I immediately wanted to get back to the city. And we looked at a lot of neighborhoods throughout the city. Pittsburgh's neighborhoods are like really diverse, which is great. But I think the same things that made me want to live in the Northside, once we'd been there a really short period of time, I really loved being there. And I think the same things that made me love the Northside from a perspective of a place I want to live and have my life develop, I want the restaurant to follow that kind of curve. The Northside has the first piece as far as living there was, I think we were looking at Shady Side and Squirrel Hill, nice neighborhoods, for sure. I don't like to drive very much, and I hated having to go 20 minutes just to get to the highway. The Northside's just right there. It's very accessible, and it's almost, to me, was surprising. Like, how is a place that's in the heart of everything feel disconnected? And I think that's it's coming back, but when they put 279 in a million years ago, it just cut the Northside clean in half. So I think you see all the things that the Northside has to offer and all the places it's almost getting, and I want to watch it happen.
Notice I got it basically 3 times. I mean, 279, Allegheny Center, and then 65. It was,
well, and not to mention back in the mills closing and all that good stuff. It's the Northside's really had the hell kicked out of it, but it endures. And the final piece for me was, I mean, I'd lived there for only a few months when I knew I liked it. You see people people say hello. It's definitely a city, but it's very much a neighborhood. You get to know people quickly. People take an interest, sometimes a little more than you'd want. But when I started to look for property, people came out of the woodwork to ask if there's anything they could do to help, to just express like enthusiasm for the project. It was something that it was really surprising and overwhelming that, I mean, I actually almost was kind of suspicious at first at how welcoming the Northside was to us to live there. But then certainly from a business perspective, when we said, I want to open a really cool, I want to open a really, beautiful, friendly neighborhood restaurant on the Northside, I've had nothing but big time encouragement from the people in the neighborhood, and that's
the Northside pride.
And honestly, that's not typical, and it's been unwavering. Like it's been years since I closed on that property in September of 15. It'll be 3 years in September. And there've been I expected it to take a certain amount of time. It's taken quite a bit more, with permitting and architecture and different design issues and all that. But through all of that, it's been nothing but love from the Northside, and that's you face enormous uncertainty going into this, like what you alluded to, but it's a good feeling to go into it knowing that you've got a group of people that are pulling for you and that are definitely curious to check you out. So from our perspective, it's
gotta be reassuring.
It's reassuring, and then but it also kind of strengthens the challenge, which is these people are like on your side and they want you to do it. Don't let them down. And we certainly don't intend to do that.
Now, Will, I mean, everyone that listens to the show knows Hammonds Backstory. Before we dive into your involvement in Siempre Algo, give us a kind of just summarization of how you got in the industry. I mean, you worked at Echo. That's how you met Hammond here. But,
So I got into the industry when I was just over 15, and it was a small French place called Zinc Brasserie, and it's been kind of turned into Zinc Hearth and Tavern now. It's Caesar and Andrea Avalone out of Sandusky. Caesar was a classically trained chef, and Andrea worked in restaurants, and that's kind of how they met. And my parents used to take me there, and it was a really beautiful little spot. And the more we went there, it was a place I really enjoyed, and it wasn't a place that was like necessarily kid friendly. Okay. But the more and more I got into it, the more I realized I really liked that atmosphere. I liked that spot, and I like seeing people like having a good time and just enjoying like a space and just feeling like the energy in a space was really kind of what drew me to it. So I got involved there, and I worked a couple different positions. I worked a few front of house spots, and then started working in the back of house when it slowed down in the winter, because Sandusky is a very seasonal town.
Gotcha.
And helped them launch their second spot, Crush Wine Bar, and they've now got 2 other spots open, so they're like really doing well in Sandusky. I worked for another place, again in Sandusky, and then I moved out here for school, and took the first job I could find, which was a little pizza place slinging beers and shots. And it's a little different in Pennsylvania. The laws kind of governing beverage service and the handling of alcohol are a little different than in Ohio. So at 18 in Pennsylvania, you can carry alcoholic beverages. In Ohio, you have to be 21 to serve alcoholic beverages. Yeah. So I got into it out here. Went in with an industrial piercing and was told I had to take it out. And it's the first time I've ever walked out of a job. I just said, like, this is not worth it.
Yeah.
And the next day I went and interviewed in the, what was it? The grill? No, not the grill room. The room off of...
You're talking about at Echo?
Yeah. The room off of the wine room. Media room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I sat in the media room and did an interview and had a callback and a stage. I left on a Wednesday night from my place out here. Had a stage on a Friday and got offered a position, and that's kind of
how long ago was that? I'm
always
always terrible with the timelines. I don't. 7 years?
7 years now.
Almost.
I was with Echo for 3.5. I was there for a while.
Yeah.
So, but now you're with Casbah now.
Yeah, I've been with Big Burrito Group for a while. A few months after Echo closed, I kind of tumbled through one or two spots trying to find the right fit. And I ended up landing at 11 in the Strip, and I was there for a while and ventured out a few times to try new things, and it just wasn't the right fit. And ended up always kind of falling back to Big Burrito, which isn't a bad thing because it's a really solid like home base.
Yeah. Successful here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're extremely successful, and they have been for years. It's one of the premier groups in the city. And had an opportunity to go to Casbah. Like, I had kind of learned what I could at 11 without moving into like a more managerial role. Gotcha. And there was an opportunity to move to Casbah. It's different clientele. It's very different style, different people, different chef, and just like different vibe, different kind of direction.
Seems to be different there within the same group.
So I jumped on that, and it's been a really interesting and like a big learning experience. It's been very positive overall. So,
as you said, I mean, Big Burrito, premier kind of restaurant group here in Pittsburgh, which then it's intriguing because you're going to leave basically steady clientele from Casbah to, again, the unknown question mark of Siempre Algo. Any concerns with that on your end? Or also, I mean, why?
Massive concerns.
Wait, Neil, what?
Hey, you're about to jump off at the top of the building with a parachute that you folded.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience skydiving?
The parachute I folded.
Hope it opens.
Yeah. I've seen him fold linens. It's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, there's always hesitation leaving something that's really well established, something that no matter what, it is there. It's successful, even when you have a slow night at some of the what they call the specialty restaurants, is a banging night for the people that are getting into the industry or the people that are working in smaller neighborhood spots like Applebee's or certain places out in Cranberry.
I'll say on average compared to the other restaurants you've worked at, you don't need to give me like an actual numerical figure, but like top 5% with Burrito and Casbah as far as what you typically make. I'd say for a nightly shift as far as like your averages.
It's on the higher. It's the upper limit of what you've been able to count on.
Yeah. I mean, Casbah and I think 11 are fairly similar in numbers.
Okay.
But it's definitely a different game than working out in the burbs. If you want to make
and a lot of those independent, smaller independent like mom and pop shops too.
Well, and like at Echo, I always did very well for like a freshly 19-year-old kid working in a fine dining spot.
Yep.
But you fall into this, and it's like the only next real step for earning potential if you want to stay as a server would be like Umi or like one of the coveted bartending jobs at one of the massively busy Mad Maxes. Those are the only real people that I know that are really like leagues ahead of myself and the other full-time kind of experienced people within Casbah.
Gotcha. So then, no, I mean, you've kind of alluded to that though, but what was your reason then for jumping on board with Brian and leaving that, again, steady income to essentially unknown and moderate income? Definitely going to be a bit of a decline compared to what you're making now, but is it the challenge or is it more?
And hopefully not for long. I mean, hopefully very quickly.
Not.
Hopefully not at all, but it's
But it's to be expected. It's something
I think we discussed when we talked a bit about, you'd seen almost like an exact progression or like consistent earnings over the years.
Yeah, for the last 3 years, my earnings have been remarkably similar from year to year with Burrito,
and even with a little bit of movement,
with leaving for a few months here and there, like it's been pretty remarkably stable, especially in the volatile time that we are now, with places opening and places that were like stalwarts of the city are closing. It's been a fairly solid, like safe kind of investment of myself and my time. But for me, you look at it and it's like the next real step is management within that, and there's safety with that group because it's well established and there's a very clear structure of like the management team and then your corporate office management and things like that, of people that you answer to. And we see our owners a lot for being a restaurant group of our size. We see the owners a lot, and they're both very pleasant people, and I really like and respect both of them. I like their spouses a lot more. They're a lot less. The spouses are a lot less intimidating.
Sounds like one of our old partners at Echo.
Yeah, I usually default to the spouses because they usually, if I make a misstep, they can usually they're like the lioness protecting. But no, it's a weird mixture of like business and friendship, and Brian and I are good close friends outside of this, and our families know each other, and we, although have like very different backgrounds and very different views on a lot of things, there's a few base things that we get along with and like respect about each other and understand that will never change about us. And he said, years ago, he said like, I'm planning this thing, and like I definitely want you to have a role. And at that time, the role, we weren't sure what it would be. It was just like, we just said we want to work together at some point in the future. And we have worked together at a few different places. But we've always worked well together, and we've always, what it boils down to is we both can speak the language of hard work. And when everything else falls to the side, you can always resort back to like hard work, honesty, integrity. And yeah, when he said, when he presented the opportunity, I want to put my stamp on something before. I wanted to do it before I was 25. I just turned 26, so I'm not far off of my mark. But it's the next step.
The managerial step for you.
Yeah, it's the managerial step, but it's also being able to kind of put my mark on a place that, to an extent, is mine because I'm responsible for parts of it, but also isn't mine because I have I don't have a real attachment to it through finances.
Let's say you're able to influence it in, I'd say, a large amount as far as hiring and everything else. The front of house is going to be your baby, so it makes sense with the managerial. Someone you trust, and someone that, forgive me if I step over a line on this one, but essentially helped mentor you when you came into it in the fine dining at Echo.
Well, I think what I'll say too, for my piece, a cornerstone, one of the things that's most important for me about Siempre is that is kind of that the growth component is a huge thing. And I remember when Will started working with us, so we were, we weren't even a year in then, and I remember for all that we had, and probably at that point we were at about 50 employees, I started to take on a lot more of a hands-on role in front of house, but it was way, way, way before or way after Will came on. And you become aware of fires to put out when you're, I was a chef, I was the exec chef, but I really learned quickly I'm also very much a GM at this place. We had non-traditional roles coming in and hadn't defined a lot of, I came from very established restaurants, and all of a sudden to open up this giant spot, it was a lot of on-the-job learning. So the point being that, I became aware of Will pretty quickly because he was the exception to what a lot of our rule was there, which was,
industrial piercings.
Yeah. No, that was never an issue.
No, because I think I had a tongue ring at that point.
Yeah, I knew the bar and all that stuff. But Will, he had the hair changed a lot, colors, and
yeah.
And but the fact is,
with it.
and honestly, that's a funny piece of it too, is that what I remember first is that he worked very hard, that he his priority was on the work, and so it was strange to see, because it wasn't the norm. Like Will didn't like suffer fools. There were people more than well over twice his age that he would just be like, get out of my way, I got to get this done. His priority was first to the service and like maintaining our standard, which is everything, especially when you're trying to establish your business in an environment where we're a high-end product in a place where our clientele was demanding. Will at 19 years old was before he had turned 20, he took our all the resources that we put out there as far as wine education, menu education. He would check in with me, with Chef Chris O'Brien, who was our Chef D. He'd check in with our sous chefs, ask questions after pre-shift about this ingredient or this farm, this producer, this technique. Can I taste that again? And even before he was allowed to taste, he studied the wine. The notes, the tasting notes that we gave the producers, the education sessions we had with our vendors. So it wasn't even a close second, or it wasn't even like the close second was far from him, from some career servers that well before Will was 21, he was our top of wine sales. And it wasn't just because he talked to Blue Streak, it's because he was informed. And I was impressed by that kind of initiative, showed a high personal standard and work ethic. But also it was just an interest. And I found that once I noticed it, which took a little time because my focus wasn't on that piece, the more I took over on the floor as some of our front of house managers were transitioning out, and I just really wanted to put more of my energy to it, because I just wasn't. We'd had some front of house managers that some not so good and some good, but as they were transitioning out, I wasn't getting the strength of candidate that I wanted. I didn't want to replace X manager with somebody that was the same or less. So instead of bringing people on, I just told, by then we had a really strong culinary team. We'd brought on a second sous chef who was, really excellent. We'd had Bobby Elliott from the beginning. We brought on Adam Stone. Once we had Adam, I had amazing culinary leadership. So as much as I wanted, because the food was always my passion.
Gotcha.
I said, I'm going to step out, get more into the front of house. And somebody like Will, what I saw with him, and we had a few people like this, but Will by far was the, for me, the example and the standard for me was, as many resources I put into this guy, we're gonna get an exponential amount of like response from it. And you would see that in the technical aspect, which is like accuracy, sales, and all that, but also just in putting our our ethic and the things that we care about. Our mission is going to communicate clearly to our guests, and that was the number one challenge, and I see it more clearly after the fact. The number one challenge for us is being in a new environment, and we're facing this again, is being able to communicate exactly why you exist. You need true believers to do that. Will was that kind of guy, and some people either do it technically well, but they don't believe in it. Some people talk the talk and don't walk the walk. And so if you find people that do that, we started out with, a culinary team that was a lot closer to that. And, when I really started to see what that looked like from a front of house perspective.
Before you go into the culinary, because I kind of want to backtrack and get more into Siempre Algo. And as you talked about, the all-pro Will here.
Hey,
I'm blushing.
How's the how you guys talk about like basic hiring process, especially stick with the front of house for now, the wine education as you already brought up.
Sure.
What's the conversations you guys have, and what's your guys' game plan going into it? Because you're looking at what, May is the opening date?
We'll be opening at some point in May. It'll be May, and I'm shooting for probably. I don't want to put a date down.
We'll say like late spring, early summer, late spring.
It's going to be May. It'll definitely be May. I think targeting like that second week to actually start to begin service. Yeah. And we're still in construction, and it's hard when I look at it to say, that wow, they're going to be done with this in 4 or 5 weeks, but they're still they're hard. They're hardcore and they're hitting it hard. But so the hiring model, we've talked in a lot of like philosophical ways. We've talked about.
Let me ask you, what are you guys looking for first and foremost? I mean, is it the passion? Is it the knowledge?
I think it's easier to say what you're not looking for, in all honesty.
Yep.
And it's a really important thing to know what you aren't looking for, because what you
Will probably can tell you what we're not looking for right now, because he's probably had to deal with a lot more of that. I've been in the philosophical spirit cave on it lately, and so it's like for me,
you've been out of like front of house service for a little bit. You've had a break from it.
and that's what I'm saying. So
that's a good thing.
I'll be up there in the ether, and Will be chopping it down, which is what you need. Sorry, go ahead.
For me, the thing that Brian and I always kind of resorted to was you can't teach someone to care, and you need to care about everything. And I remember it so clearly, not to like bring up Echo again, but I remember one day it was a thing with like people putting cigarettes out on the stucco on the side of the building, and it was it was something that like Brian's not a yeller. When he's mad, he shakes, and like if he yells, you run, you hide under a table, because if Brian's yelling, it's an ugly situation. It's a dangerous situation where somebody cares about is going to get hurt. Something's not even him.
I'm not going to strike someone.
No, he means like somebody that he cares about, like somebody's being careless with a steak knife and like a silverware bin and a dishwasher's getting cut, and he's like, hey, you need to give a shit about this, because you're gonna hurt someone, and if you don't care, that's a problem. So looking for people that care about themselves, you can't teach someone to like, hey, I have like mashed raspberry on my shoe, I should probably try to polish that a little bit. Or like, just making sure that you present nicely. And nicely means a lot of different things. So I had platinum blonde hair and a tongue ring at one point at like a fine dining restaurant that was serving $100 bottles of wine, hundreds of dollars of bottles of wine. But I was always crisp, pressed, presentable, ready for work, never late, and willing to learn. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can only hold its head underwater for so long before it drowns. But yeah, what it boils down to is I need someone that cares. And the rest of the stuff, for the most part, the rest of the stuff you can teach, but you can't, if somebody doesn't care about themselves, about their interest in learning, about the industry, you can't teach that. The money dolls. It doesn't matter. You could be working at a Fortune 500 company making $500,000 a year, and if you're miserable and you don't care about what you do, eventually the paycheck's not enough, no matter what it is. Well, and even you experienced this at one point. The money was good, but eventually it became the other things weren't worth it.
What Brian just described is a perfect example of not having the experience, but you cared about what you were doing and you wanted to learn everything else. From there, you can grow at a pretty accelerated rate. With the passion and everything else. I know you guys are still working through the menu and going through that. Yeah, and I should preface by saying that on a lot of this, because Will be transitioning in like that, we're actually going to start the daily check-ins, and we're going to actually start, kind of hitting the. We've had a lot of the more mercurial conversations. We've talked definitely about. I think we know what the bigger picture is like, but we haven't hit nuts and bolts on a lot of stuff because he's been full-time, plus he does work on the side. So I've kind of gotten all that infrastructure put together. There will be a lot of things that are not going to be great surprises to him because he's seen a lot of what we try to do. But moving forward, there's still quite a bit of like the specifics, and so it's amazing how we'll take a good month from just a little bit ahead of now until we open, where we really start to sit down and smash our heads off each other and see like this is, the little details start to take shape. Yeah. Where does the little spoon go and all that stuff? But I feel like we've already seen. I think that we approve of, what our general standards are for these things. But right. Well, I'm kind of curious. I mean, what's an average shift going to be like? Still in the outline kind of phase as I gather here. Mm-hmm. Pre-shift. Is it going to be any sort of? Are you going to be open 7 days a week too, or no?
No, we're the way we're gonna lead, and this was something that was really important to me, and another reason that East Ohio Street specifically was such a good kind of starting place. I was able to buy a bar that needed a lot of work, but I could buy the bar outright. It would allow us to say, what I want to do is, instead of being overextended on day one, I want to get one staff. We're going to do 5 dinner services. We're going to go dinner Tuesday to Saturday. So all the people we have, we're going to be there all the time to start. We all are around each other, and so we're going to do 5 dinner services a week for the first few months, and then when we feel that we've got that absolutely nailed, we'll talk about expanding services and all that. I don't need to. I don't have. We're not going to open it at a point of desperation. We're opening in a place where we can say the most important thing is first to establish the standard, consistency, and have the staff all on the same page. So I want to have a small crew of people that at least I know from our core perspective, we're going to have like-minded people, like-minded, professionals, so that we can indoctrinate and kind of soak everybody else in that
Makes
culture.
Give me a ballpark figure as far as staff numbers, front house, back house. And also, too, are you going to use any of those Sunday and Monday as far as education, especially on the wine menu, as tastings?
Yeah, I think the initial thing is going to be, I'm going to say it's depending on exactly what the hour breakdown is. If I have a position that's full-time that might require, say if instead of having a 40-hour dishwasher, maybe we have to split that over 2 employees. My ideal goal is like somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 employees, which would be myself and a chef D in the kitchen, two other like chefs de partie in the kitchen, one like full-time dishwasher, a little more supplemental help for that over the weekends, 2 bartenders, a couple support staff, Will running the front of house, coordinating, the managerial aspects of that, and then also helping to coordinate service with 3 other service. So, shake that out to about 14 folks.
Okay.
Or what was the?
I would say that's for like a whole staff. However, the nightly breakdown is for me. Wednesday night I see 1 bartender, 2 support staff, a hostess, 2 servers for front of house.
I forgot about.
That's what I see. And actually, speaking of, you were asking Neil earlier about Siempre and like saying like his experience with like design and layout of a restaurant. It's really funny. Him and I were talking about it when he was first like showing me blueprints, not to like jump back to it, but he's going through this and he's showing me these designs and I'm like, where's the server station? And he's like, what?
Yeah, you'd want that, I guess.
I'm like, yeah, where's the server station? He's like, fuck. I'm like, yeah, you need, I was like, where are we going to put like a coffee maker and storage and stuff? And he's like, that's a really good thing.
I'm glad we had this conversation. and the funny thing, it's not even because
it's little tidbits that like that where it's awesome having somebody that has tons of experience like yourself, but that is really open to saying like, hey, these are the blueprints I have. Right. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, just like a few little things, and you were like, oh, how did I miss that?
Well, and
it's important to look at that from all different perspectives, from hiring, from planning, from design, from like running pre-shifts and pre-service or pre-meal, whatever anybody wants to call it.
Yeah, I mean,
education, things like that.
Yeah, and for me, that typical day you were talking about is, for me, I live 3 blocks away. I share an alley, my house, with the restaurant. So, for me, what I want to do is, I'll pop down there, make sure that, we're receiving product. I think it's about getting a couple culinary guys in there to, I'd say have Will, have my chef D in there. This is in the very, very beginning, but you receive product, you review things from the night before, start production, get some folks in to, start doing all that good prep work, check the numbers, all that good stuff. Pre-shift for me is probably, in restaurants, overall, mise en place is everything. So, the prep, you've already, the dishes are mostly won and lost before you even hit service. And I feel the same way about your mental mise en place, primarily with the floor. Obviously, the tables of the room's got to be clean. Everything's got to look the way it should. But the pre-shift is just everything. Making sure that you're armed with knowing who's coming in. I tend to put a lot more time into the pregame than at least some of the restaurants that I'd been a part of, and mostly that I worked back of house before I had Echo. You know the routine after a while, but I think with service, it's there's so much more. And I do want to include the back house more in that. I think that, so we'll do a 5 o'clock service, go till, weeknights, till about 10 for the dining room, keep the bar going and kind of feel out what the bar will support in that neighborhood. We've got the Park House across the street.
Kitchen closes at 10, and then
and keep some snacks.
If you
available.
have 2 people in the bar, you eventually say like, "May I take care of anything else?"
Yeah, I mean, and I think our goal is the bar is going to be beautiful. Certainly, great, crafted cocktails and a really sexy wine list, kind of a nice eclectic wine list that's not overbearing as far as expense, certainly on East Ohio, but just featuring some cool things. I'd like to think that that's going to be something that we're going to, draw a lot of folks in.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about still with the pre-shift and all that, you're going to have the whole staff sit down and since you have the small staff, is it going to try to keep it that communal and keep it going, especially in the beginning?
I think that one thing that an opportunity always is, and something I really want to focus on. It's not something we did at Echo because we did a service that went from lunch through, and there was no interruption. We didn't do a staff meal. Staff meal is something that I do want to accentuate. It's an opportunity to sometimes just to taste new products, but also just to get everybody together. So to have a staff,
everybody a reason to come in early,
but also in a space
start to talk.
Siempre is a small space, and it was one of the things that really attracted me to it. Echo was so large, but we get everybody together to have that staff meal, so everybody kind of gets eyes on each other, talk about products a bit, and then also, but then kind of break out, like in that corporate way where Chef D is going to address front of house, talking about new dishes, new products, and I think having an itinerary for that's like really important. Staying on message, making sure that your time's well used. But I think that if you're not really, I mean, for me, I just feel like the idealism of what we do is important, and I think that once in a while, folks are like get a little bit. You can get so jaded in this business that when you're getting a pre-shift and putting a note of enthusiasm into the pre-shift, I don't know. My feeling is if you don't want to get pumped up, why are we doing this? Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with putting some Phil Collins on and a headlamp? And I mean, like our psych ups at Stagione before a Saturday, there was like some of my best memories. And doing pre-shift, I think that a huge component of what matters to me about Siempre Algo and why do that as opposed to just I could work at another restaurant or I could just do something else. Why do I want to do it? And I think the reason is because this business, and we've talked a lot about this on a range of topics here, is that this business, when it's done properly, is excellent and amazing and can be inspiring. It can be transformative for the guests, but it can really be transformative for the people that work it. Yeah. And I've experienced that as as an employee, and I've experienced that as an owner. But I feel like I'm going to be that, Kool-Aid drinking, Kool-Aid making guy. And if somebody finds that a little bit overwhelming, like, oh yeah, here he goes being positive about, what he's doing. That's talk about things you don't want. I don't want people on board in our small little boat here that don't want to see this be something other than just another restaurant. I mean, there are plenty of places you can get X dish or Y bottle of wine. I think that for me, things that elevate what we do aren't. It's not specifically just the product; it's the attitudes that accompany it.
All right. Why I keep coming back to the pre-shift just because I feel like it's one of the best ways to kind of create that. But
and I think honestly,
for the pre-shift for me, I've been dying for this. The pre-shift for me, and it's one of the things that I really appreciate is, and I respect about like Bobby Elliott, Bobby Sauce. Some of the best people I've worked with are a blend of front and back of house experience, and very strong front and back of house experience. And Brian's got more of that now than you did, but you really didn't get into it until you started like taking over a little bit of front of house at Echo. For me, when I started out, I started in back. I've done everything from wash dishes to crack oysters to freeze salads and poach eggs, which make me want to off myself. You're 18 poaching eggs. It's hard. It's really hard. No, it's important to have somebody that even if it's only a server that has only ever been a front of house staff, you will respect the kitchen and you will respect what they do. You will respect your dishwasher. Because if you're not willing, if they are in the weeds and the dish pit's going down, you need to be able to do that. You need to jump in and say like, I'll run this silverware for you. I'll jump in and help. For front of house staff saying like, hey, let me flip this cutting board for you, or you need something out of the walk-in, let me go get it. It's really important to have that like all-encompassing style, there's always been the breakdown of front of house versus back of house. There's always been a thing. Even in the places that don't allow it, it's always a thing.
Yeah. Well, that's I think what you guys are kind of an interesting, because you can basically erode that right out of the gates if you guys get the right staff, you guys do the right way, and I think that's one of the coolest challenges of what you guys are undertaking right now. But that being said, then too, with the hiring then too, and we talked about this off air before, the idea of poaching, which is always a dirty word in this industry, which cracks me up because we talked about it happens every industry, every profession. You're looking for good talent at other locations. It would be another restaurant, would be a rival bank, a rival financial business, doesn't matter. Good talent's good talent. You want it to be a part of your team.
Yeah.
Is there any such people that you are looking at? I mean, naturally, I don't want you to mention my names, but
no, there's
do you have a draft board per se?
There's definitely people that
The switchboard just started lighting up.
There's definitely people that I have my eye on, and it's just really like rock solid people that I've worked with that I really like and respect and understand.
Do you just slip them a Siempre Algo card on like the way out, or what, how do you do that?
I think they know what the ones that I really am interested already know what my plan is, and the ones that I'm not interested in, like I gave notice a short time ago at Casbah, and a few of them have said like good luck, congratulations, and some haven't, and that's fine. But no, it's the ones that I'm interested in already know, and when it's time to have that conversation, I think they're kind of expecting it. And for the most part, the ones that know that it is coming, I think already kind of have their mind made up. But yeah, in our industry, it's referred to as poaching, and all you're doing is seeking good talent, and all you say is, I have this new opportunity. This is what I can offer you. This is why we're doing things a different way. This is why we're doing them. And are you interested? In other industries, there are headhunters, and that is their job. And they go out and they recruit the top lawyers at smaller firms to go to massive firms, bankers, investment people, and that there are headhunters. There's recruiters. That's what they do. So in our industry, it's something that the best people that I've ever worked for, with Brian and a few others, they covet you for what you are, and when the relationship is matured, they pass you along to the next big thing. When you have someone that doesn't see the picture of people, because a server's lifespan is not unlimited, you eventually learn the restaurant, you learn the service, you learn the beverage list, you learn the clientele. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. If you're hungry for the next thing, then you make the step. But you put it out there, people either take it or leave it. And in this industry, you get certain employers that it's like a mosquito. They stick it in and they suck them dry. And that's not what you want. And I think those are the people that would say it's poaching.
Well, and the way I would say is if we're all on a level playing field and everybody has good intentions, which obviously everybody in our business does.
Yeah.
But I think there's,
definitely.
I think there are things that are like just what's common practice and what's what I see as.
Why do you guys think it's such a dirty word in our industry? Then?
I'd say there's two levels now in our business, and I'm sure in any business. This is the one I know though. Sometimes no matter what you do, you can just be, Captain America about everything, and you can do your very best to like leave responsibly. You're at a place, there's nowhere to go, there's no upward mobility. You've certainly put in your time. You do everything the right way. You let your employer know. You give them a month's notice, and all that stuff, and they just still go batshit crazy on you. That's just some people. They're just not, no matter what, they're not going to see it as anything else. There's a bit of survival mode that happens. And, I remember I was a kid, I was 22 or something. I was in culinary school actually, and they were saying, Chef Mark Sullivan was saying to me, he's like what Will's saying is that, you go and you do your service and you like really put your best into it and all that. And if there's not an upward mobility and you've put in your time and all that, any chef worth his salt is going to say, hey, I understand that you're looking to make a move. We don't have like a soup position, so I will like reach out and find a spot for you. And I laughed. This is in a classroom setting, and he was like, what's your problem? And I was like, are you serious? That's not the way it is at all. I hadn't worked at quality employers that they were of the quality that would do that. And so he and I had a quiet conversation privately about it. And, and then I started to see through years that I've worked in places where that happens. I've worked in places where that doesn't happen. And I think that if you wait around, if you conduct yourself in this business if you work this business based on the reaction you're going to get from X guy or whatever, you're going to have a long life. It's kind of like saying if you're going to run your restaurant based on every Yelp review, you're going to look like this. You're going to be schizophrenic. Yeah. I think you have to establish like what are your values. And
you saying Yelp just gave me. I think I had a mini stroke.
And what and we'll work you through that. I survived Urban Spoon. We'll get you through Yelp. What I think that is you first you establish like what are your values. I don't set my values based on based on the lowest common denominator. We try to be a little bit more above board than that. But you're not going to make everybody happy. But I think to me what poaching means is when you like is a targeted, kind of backdoor, theft of someone. There are ways that you can do that is ugly. I think if you, you find somebody, you kind of like surreptitiously use back channels to find out what they're making. You just make that little thing. You sow seeds of, discontent and all that.
The person still has free will.
For sure.
You could say no.
Free will in this industry? Oh my God.
No, you're right.
You could say like, no,
listen,
fuck off, I'm happy.
Pennsylvania and the world and hospitality are hysterical because everything's a double standard from the employer standpoint. They say, listen, they can always tell you to fuck off because it's an at-will state. But if you decide that you're going to fuck off, then you're a backstabber. Because the thing of all that, I've given you $2.83 an hour. How can you not devote your life to me?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that if you have, we all have to find our own kind of compass in this thing. And for sure, everyone's got a slightly different version of that.
Do you think it's because this industry, the turnover rate's high, finding good help, finding passionate help is so rare that when someone does leave, it is a bit heartbreaking if it's not done appropriately.
Listen, I can tell you as an employer.
But if they really cared, they would do what it took to make those people stay.
To a point, but sometimes sometimes you don't have the next step for them, and so you wish them the best. And listen, I'm going to tell you, I've been through it as an employee a million times. Very, very many times I've gone through this as an employee. Sometimes it's gone well, sometimes it's gone poorly. I've been through this as an employer, and I'm telling you, when you get that, hey chef, can I talk to you for a minute? And you're just like, oh damn it, not this week. I remember most of those conversations with somebody I didn't want to lose. And, it's because when you're in this industry, especially as an individual operator, and I think for a lot of people, I mean, it's your life. And it's like, maybe this one guy is really just put out. Losing good people is so fucking hard. And even if you're able to say, and I've lost a lot of good people just because, through...
it's a nature of the beast. It's a gambit. When it happens, it's just hard, and there's no way around that. And I think if you're an emotionally immature person, you're going to put that on the employee that's leaving. You're going to call them a piece of shit, tell them where they're going is a terrible restaurant. I can tell you, my first job in Pittsburgh after I came back from San Diego, I was 26. And the chef told me, he's like, oh yeah, you're going to this place. The chef's an infantile egomaniac was the phrase he used. They're not reinventing the fucking wheel. Then his wife came to me and said that he's not going to be able to be a good father to his children anymore because I'm leaving. He's going to have to work more, and his daughters aren't going to grow up right. It's a fair onus to put on you, absolutely.
I was like, shit. Well, at $12.50 an hour, I should be raising your family. So, and I finally got so out of control that I was just like, the next word you say to me about where I'm going is the end of my notice, because I gave him a long notice. That next day I was at a Guitar Center with my brother, and he called me up and he goes, you quit? No, you're fucking fired. And I was like, oh, cool. Then I get to collect. Thanks. You know, but it's like, it's emotional maturity that, listen, it always stings when you lose good people. And even if it's the perfect, we think about anything. Like, think about when just somebody in your life you care about is, you know, leaving, and for no reason of, you didn't do anything wrong, but it's just, that's just what happens. This occurs. Now tie in your economic well-being. Now tie in the fact you're going to have to train somebody else. Now tie in.
Well, I think it comes down to a lot what we talk about on the show. I mean, there is a disconnect, especially a bit of tunnel vision in this industry. So the whole poaching aspect, instead of looking at it from other industries, and that happens all the time, it becomes personal. And then we talk about a lot too. There's a lot of immaturity in our profession.
There's a difference. There's a difference between our business is, and I think most businesses kind of are, but ours for sure. Restaurant industry is like a relationship-based industry.
Which is part of the reason the restaurant industry is a walking HR nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, we hang out at the same places. We see the same people. We compete with each other. We get along with each other. We drink with each other, and all those things that happen. So, you know, it's natural that connections are going to be made. And, you know, I think that at the end of the day, you just have to square yourself with it. I don't know. I've never seen like the poacher's court, you know, where it's like you're not going to get called out for that.
I think it's kangaroo court. I think,
but you can absolutely hurt your reputation. But I think that comes from consistency. If you behave poorly consistently, you're going to build a reputation, and we all have to square ourselves with that. So I think for we're all held to account based on our actions, and I think that's really as far as you can go with it. I don't ever intend to just become a guy that goes out and tears places up, but you know what? I'm also not going to just go to the swamplands and just pluck people who've never seen a restaurant to hire. Yeah, I'd like to have somebody with some experience as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't got to elaborate on this, Brian, but you just touched on it with the HR department and everything else. How you guys, I mean, essentially, are you going to have a stud HR? How are you guys going to cope with that? And it's all, I mean, naturally part of the hiring process.
Sure.
And you guys are, discussing with future employees.
It's a big growth thing for me. For when I started at Echo, I was a young kid, and like when you cut your teeth in a kitchen, it's a little different when you're acting in a front of house role. You have to have some maturity with how you talk and behave and carry yourself, and some poise,
different words,
and some decorum,
different words you can't use on the floor
or on live podcast either. But no, there's working through the company I've worked for and seeing how they handle some of the challenges with HR, and that's one of the nice things about working for a group, especially a well-established group. Payroll is on point in the industry. You most of the time your paycheck can be late, it can be wrong, it can bounce. It's never happened.
What comes down to that
being
what
a
we talked
Burrito
about before,
employee.
the structure of basic well-oiled machine, somewhat of corporation, if you will. And then it's still a mom and papa shop. It's basically gonna be you and your wife running most of the
so what I can tell you about a little bit of that is I've had, let's see, so I've worked hospitality for about 22 years by now, and it wasn't a career path at first. It was something I was doing while I was doing other things. But I've seen it at a lot of different levels. And like what Will's describing, and I went to 11 for I think about 7 months between things, and I went to kind of to work with Will and see have some common experience there, but also it was nearby. I like the fact that it's a very well-oiled machine there. And one thing I can speak of from my relatively brief period working under that umbrella of the Burrito is, the HR mechanism is really on point. And it's not a large, a couple people.
I think there's 2 HR people, and any time.
How many restaurants do they have? A dozen at least.
Well, there's 5 specialties, and I think there's at least 12 MBACs, maybe 14.
Yeah.
But there's 2 main HR people, and they do have the owners have corporate office over in Shadyside, and the owners are there almost daily, checking in, looking things over.
They're very much on point.
The HR people are go into it too much because you're still working with it, but it's on your radar as far as
it is. Yeah. There's a program to be used.
I'll address it briefly. So when we started Echo, we had some basic framework and some things that we kind of knew that we had to build in as we started. We had a partnership that allowed us to have a mechanism for benefits administration. My wife wound up mostly by default picking up a lot of things as far as payroll. We cobbled together, as a lot of people I think do. You get online and you find like some boilerplate shit to do, as like handbooks and all that. Through the years of Echo, we spent years, we did hire on HR consultant, business coaches to make sure that like we had more compliant things, touch base with. You kind of start to see what the challenges are. And I didn't know it because I'd mostly been in the kitchen itself. But having administered that for 50 people and now going forward into a smaller company, and the climate's changed, like if Obamacare is up or down, depending on the week, what's happening politically with all that stuff. Your people are your most important. Your people there's nothing more important than your employees in what you do, not the food, not the building, nothing, because who's going to do it. And so for us, the HR component is, I don't have a dedicated HR like employee or firm, but we have a good solid infrastructure. We've made an effort to find, and Terry, who did our business administration at Echo, we've found a lot of and we're fortunate in the 21st century to have a lot of like online applications that you can find that allow you to have access to.
Staff at Siempre is going to be what, like a third of the size of Echo?
Less than a third.
A lot less.
Less than a third. And
so I'd imagine you can take that, compress it down, and
yeah, I mean,
you can, but you can't necessarily
compress it down. But naturally, let's stop.
Well, some things translate, some things don't. But the one thing that we have available to us, and that literally the technology has changed so much from 2010 when we opened Echo to 2018. As an example, I found a cloud-based system that I can work with. That my POS will port through to my bookkeeper and through payroll into a hiring mechanism, and then there's like an HR component as far as just handling documentation. There are tools that just weren't available before, and they're pretty robust. There's a cost to them, but you weigh that against having a dedicated employee on site for it. So I think that you can kind of try to cobble it together and hope for the best. My tendency is to say we're gonna spend a little more than I might feel initially comfortable with, because there's nothing more important than make sure that our things are taken care of for the people that do the work for us.
People are comfortable, safe, respected.
When we have, there's nothing more demoralizing than when you work hard for a restaurant and something.
They don't have your bag.
Something's wrong. Even it's like a simple issue on payroll, and you don't know if it's going to be handled. As opposed to, I remember, in our days, if something wasn't right, like we mobilized and took care of it immediately. Like it was like nothing was more important than taking care of that. And it's the same way moving forward, because, listen, it's certainly not worth doing if it's not taken care of properly. But I can't imagine a clearer way to articulate to your team what you do doesn't matter than if we don't have your back on every one of these points.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And when you're trying to tell the way that if I bring you into
we want to make, like you just said, you want to make sure that your team knows you care about them. And Will and I both know you personally. We know how much you care about the restaurant and your endeavors. So you're going to make sure you have that in place, so your employees, the future employees, trust your operation, trust you, and hopefully they believe it in as much as you do.
Sure.
I'm going to switch kind of gears, though. Not so much an HR thing, but I definitely wanted to touch your brain on this, Will. And we talked about it off the air. But being, a gay man, predominantly heterosexual profession, have you had ever any issues on that or anything else?
Employment-wise, not necessarily, but handling guests, absolutely. One of the most notable things was I was bartending at Echo one night, and unfortunately Brian and Terry weren't in house that evening. I think you guys might have been at dinner actually, which is why they didn't reach out to you. And I was bartending with a female bartender that was a very good friend of mine, and a lot of people found her to be a very attractive woman. She's a very attractive woman in my eyes. And it was a group of 3 businessmen for a massively large foods corporation, multinational foods corporation. And conveniently, they left a laptop, actually, which was the final crowning jewel. And she was fronting the table. She was the double. She was leaving, and their words were, and I'm quoting here, so don't shoot the messenger. Great, the one with the nice tits is leaving. Now we get the fag. And I overheard it, and I went to my manager and I said, "I'm you can fire me, you can drag me, but I won't go over there. I won't do this. I won't put up with it." And at that point, I just been honest, like, to my parents and to some family, and my partner and I had been together. My partner and I have been together for some time now, and he's a massive support system for me, and he's hugely supportive of like my endeavors, and I support him in a lot of his endeavors as well. But it was really heartbreaking. You see guys that are, supposed to be business professionals that have a few drinks and can't have the decorum to even make a statement quietly amongst themselves. You can't look past that and just respect good service. But I think a lot of the LGBT community, we've not necessarily fall to restaurants, but we find like safety and comfort in them, because when you're out at the bar with everybody after service having a drink, it doesn't matter, who you're attracted to or what's going on in your personal life. You're having a drink, you're bitching about somebody that camped and a tip and something that happened, and all of the personality thing, or the personal shit, falls to the wayside. So from an employment aspect, no, I've never had an issue identifying as a gay man in the industry. But yeah, you can feel it. Everybody can feel it when you know that you're not necessarily being welcomed. And the nice part is when you sit in my section, you're stuck. You don't want me. Yeah. You don't get that table. Yeah. You gotta move.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
no.
When we talked about this before, I thought it was how you said, because I never thought about it, but it is so inclusive in the staff mindset to where that never is an issue. And we've all worked with some crazy staff members, and I think that's never an issue with sexuality or anything else.
A great thing about hospitality as a business is that it's an equalizer. Like, where you're in the trenches with each other, it's like, listen, if you're come from a rich family or a poor family, if you're gay, straight, regardless of your, you really quickly learn to forget all that and just say, like, I don't care if you look anything like me, if you think anything like me. Like, if you can't get that goddamn chicken in that window in 2 minutes, I've got no use for you. Because
you said, it's the great equalizer between sexuality, ethnicity, financial background. It's the language that everybody speaks. It's the common denominator.
And the horrible piece of it, it's funny, but it's terrible, is that, we're all equally worthless to our guests most of the time. They're just kind of like, listen, as long as if the powdered sugar pattern on my French toast does not please me, I don't care what God you worship.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, no, the sexuality component is a big thing, and it's less of a thing working in the city. Yeah. In the suburbs, it was never really an issue, mainly because I never really allowed it to be an issue. If you present that you're just providing good service, that if that's the foot you lead with, then if your guests make an issue of it, that is not acceptable, and that is grounds for dismissal of those guests from respect. From, if you choose to dismiss them from your restaurant, which at that point in time I didn't have that say at Echo, I refused service from myself, and thankfully somebody else stepped in and took over. But that is grounds for dismissal of your guests. That's not tolerable. It's not acceptable in this. It wasn't acceptable back then. It's definitely not acceptable in this day and age for any reason. I don't care what it is. I don't care if the woman waiting on you has pink hair and I don't know where to go.
It's funny.
But if she's providing good service standards and following our practices, you have no leg to stand on to say. If you're going to say she's providing bad service because of who she is as a person, when you, as a guest, you don't know your server's sexuality. You can guess, but if you assume,
it's shame on you.
Yeah, but it's one of the things where, like, you as a guest, that really isn't your business.
Yeah.
And if you're weighing your service based on your server's sexuality, ethnicity, background, you just stay home.
Yeah,
Go through Wendy's and get a drive-through, get a dollar menu.
I'm going to take this, well, not so volatile, but still, I think it's tension-causing subject matter. But as you said, leading with the safest foot forward, what's your guys' plan with Siempre Algo then to say do that and lay down the line with the Siempre mission, and like how are you guys going to embody that to the guests?
Well, so the key piece for me is, to say that I think that a lot of times, with Echo, we had a kind of my mantra that, coalesced when we were doing that and trying to explain what we were trying to do. I had I don't know, maybe I thought you had to have an acronym or something. We used to always say, it was like the CA, the CAP, care, attention, and pride. And it just was coincidence, but I was like, you could write it on the whiteboard.
Yeah, you can make it out of that.
I remember the whiteboard. That was where Preshift was the right whiteboard.
This big old
it got everybody on the same page. I think, not to jump ship on the current topic, but like Preshift is a massively important thing that makes sure everybody is on the same page about what is happening. And at that point, you have no excuse for not knowing what's going on.
But I think a critical step forward from that too, and something that I only experienced in a few places, is a post shift, and not everybody's going to be there for it, but as also to be able to say, you have to have a real intentional approach to what you're getting into, but also not to have that just like we're done and everybody starts to just fall out of service. I think you have to have an intentional end to service as well, which is like what went well, what didn't go well, and then that feeds into the next day. But so to talk about like the philosophy and how you articulate that, with a place like Echo, I'd say like care, attention, and pride, and that extrapolate into a lot of different things. How we feel about the property, how we feel about our work, how we feel about the product, and that has multiple manifestations. But I think that I wanted to often have it be that the way that we would do things and the examples we would provide would kind of express these values. And as time goes by, I've actually come around to thinking those things that you do have to back up, your ethic. But I've actually gotten a little more. I think I didn't want to preach too much or something like that. And now I feel kind of the inverse, which is, I'm going to be overt about, what my values are. Certainly this is a place where I can, and we come in to talk about specific issues, but I'm going to see it all through that lens because, I've got a 20-year opportunity to, through the lens of my experience in the industry and through like my upbringing and all that, to say what's important, what do I value in my work and in my industry. And now I can say I'm a business owner. I own this restaurant. This is what Siempre Algo is going to be about. And I'll put it forth. If you don't think this is something you want to be a part of, then that's fine. But this is required reading. And so for me, that is, I think that great hospitality comes from, hospitality as I define it, comes from having passion for what you do, but having optimism for what you do. I think when you're optimistic and you've an open-mindedness, and that our hospitality starts inside our restaurant. I'm certainly not the first person to say it, but I absolutely believe in it, and it's a bedrock issue. If I don't extend hospitality to somebody like Will and to the people that we bring in who are new, I think that we say, for me, it's here we are. We have lofty goals. We have lofty expectations. These are, and you have to be very clear and articulate your expectations. This is what your job is. And we're gonna hold you to these standards, but we're also gonna give you all the tools and all the support and all the education that you need to make that happen. And the optimism part for me says this can be a better thing, and that I'm not gonna open this restaurant to just be a place where people get food. There has to be a higher purpose, and for me that is a place where it was some ways we were getting towards with a place even like Echo, but the restaurant that I want Siempre to be and to be a part of, the tradition I want to be a part of here in Pittsburgh, for all that we have some really nice and cool restaurants and some really cool restaurants that are happening now, there isn't a culture in Pittsburgh yet that where I want to be. That's not there yet, and that's not to cast aspersions on any restaurants here. There's some restaurants I really love in Pittsburgh, but I think it's about putting about putting a pin up here and having a thing to aspire to. And every step along the way, these are things that we have to do to get there. And so for me, that's to allow, in order for our restaurant to grow. I mean, we couldn't possibly think about opening, from my experience, I'm not going to try to open Topolobampo on East Ohio Street. It would fall flat on its face in a second. What I knew from them and from being a part of that culture, and some of the people with, Chef Bayless, with Mr. Rick at Frontier and Topolo, after 30 years, there were people from day one that were still with him. So I got to ask questions about how it progressed and grew. And for me, growth is one of the most critical pieces of what I want to see happen at Siempre. Exactly. And in order to grow, you need to be able to make mistakes, know that you're going to be supported.
And to evolve.
But it's like, also, we have to be able to take chances. And that, like, sometimes you're going to take that chance and it's going to you're just going to knock it out of the park. And sometimes you're going to swing and fall flat on your ass. And when that happens, we're going to pick you up, dust you off, and we're going to put you right back at the plate.
That's it. Now, something we haven't even talked about at all. What type of food should we expect and what type of wine should we expect? Because I imagine you're going to run more of the beverage program, Will, if I'm not mistaken. It.
Yeah, well, and we'll put our heads together on that. And honestly, the funny thing with, like with Will, and it's not to say, like...
I'm super excited to, like, be able to bartend.
Your restaurants.
I'm thrilled, actually. It's a really exciting prospect.
It's definitely not a co-op like what we're going into. It's like I'll hold the, the presiding vote on certain things, but it's like, what I want to have is weigh in from, I know that Will understands food and not just like he gets it or he's seen it. Will's passionate about food and he studies it. He cooks on his own. He's cooked professionally, so he knows that that's a different thing than just throwing a party at home. We took our sommelier certification 1 and 2 from WSET. We took it together, and that was important to me so that we'd have the same baseline understanding. If like we at least get to hear without there being holes between our common understanding, and the process, here is going to be, I've got a framework for what I want the food to be, and it's really kind of like Siempre Algo. And I think the question that comes down a lot is, is it Mexican or is it Spanish? Siempre Algo is, it comes from when I was a kid out in San Diego. It's like kitchen Spanish. All the guys would always say Siempre Algo when something went wrong. Now the marketing piece is it's for when something goes right, it's like there's always something great to try, something new. And for me, it's kind of an ironic like tip of the cap for me coming up through the shit, in that place. But it's meant so much more over time for me about, it's always something. And that's the kind of fun of it. I love knowing, I don't know if I could wake up every day knowing everything was going to go right. Like, I think we get so used to it being such a mess, and it's like we're going to get up and we're going to get after it. So there, and to be clear, I wouldn't have. There's going to be.
All right. Well, I love you, man. But
I know.
Well, give me some staples that you're looking for the restaurant, man. Give me. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're talking about.
So we're going to open
the soft pretzel, which is kind of a gimmicky kind of
and that throws the whole thing off immediately on its ass. Now, but so the pretzels, we're in Deutschtown. It's a German,
it's barbarian kind of food.
Yeah, and we're not going to do. I'm not going to be making German food, but
so I imagine you guys want to rotate pretty often. But there's got to be some staples that you guys definitely like. Mrs. Boom.
So where I'm coming from is that, the modern American thing doesn't mean much. It could mean just about anything. And for me, I come up as a mutt where I've learned in, traditional French, country style French, tradition, like very specific regional Mexican. So those dishes, the ingredients and the techniques make their way in. And so for me, synthesizing through, it's going to mean something different in spring. Like we're going to open in May, so I'll talk about May. So May, really fresh, bright ceviches, because there's nothing better for me when it starts to get warm, like celebrating that herbaceousness, getting ingredients that we get to grow in the neighborhood.
You guys going to keep the, isn't there a hangover drink with ceviche juices? You're supposed to take the leftover juice, add like tequila. It's supposed to like cure any hangover. I worked with a crazy Mexican guy. He's telling me this. I never tried it, but I was like,
what did he call it? Because I'm trying to think.
I don't know. It was a Peruvian guy I learned how to make ceviche from, and he was just like, don't do it. The Mexican guy was like, do it. My boy Dre, my boy Guillermo. Guillermo was one time to make ceviche to Peruvian. He was very anti this concoction.
I can remember there's like the sangres where they did like a really chili infused like tomato shot that would accompany a tequila. but that's probably different than what you're talking about. Peru's not my specialty. I don't make it south of Mexico with confidence. But yeah, for me, like bright ceviche is getting a lot of, like, you know, fish dishes where I think, you know, what it has to feature what's coming from this area. So, you know, to me, May is English peas and halibut running, you know, purees of fresh minted English peas. I'm not going to try to conform to, I'm not going to try to say, like, I'm not going to try to give you the traditional fare of Oaxaca, because that's not where I'm from. And I'm not going to try to give you Leon, because that's not where I'm from. This is Pittsburgh, and this is where we are. So the ingredients first. My primary concern is what's going to best showcase the ingredients that are coming to us from this area, and if it's beautiful English peas, and I'm getting mint from the garden, then maybe making a gorgeous chilled soup from that is going to be something that we're apt to do, and that would trip towards, you know, more towards the French. But if it's a gorgeous piece of sunfish coming my way, I can't think of a reason that shouldn't be ceviche in the warm months of May.
I think what it boils down to is, like, having clarity of what the base is and what's going to be sprinkled in. So I think the base is, you'll have to say, what is the base going to be? Latin with French sprinkled in? Is the base going to be?
It's the base simply
using
is
different techniques, or using
the food. The food is it's modern American. I mean, nobody. If you
it
go
sounds
to,
like it's, I would say more like your passions are from Oaxaca and all that, and still your traditional French. So from my understanding, just in conversation I have with you, it seems like it's still passionate.
To me, fusion's
geographic.
Fusion's a thing where you take this thing and you smash them together until they fit, and that's not something that I'm interested in. This is I would always tended towards calling it, like, you know, like mutt cuisine. You know, if I know how to, my tendency is going to be to synthesize all the things that I've cooked through the years and put them together. And if it's winter, Latin American cuisine is not going to inform that as strongly as, you know, doing like a great braised dish like beef bourguignon, or you know, braised pork cheeks, and you know, with root vegetables. That's not something you're not getting that from Durango. So my tendency is to say, if I've been soaked in all these different cultures and all these techniques, I'm going to let the ingredients come to me and dictate to me what they need to be. So you know, it's the same thing with the cocktails. You know, what plays in Pittsburgh in July is not what plays in Pittsburgh in January. So I know that it can be mildly frustrating. I could put the menus in front of you, but what's more important to me is to say that when you start with great ingredients and you put great technique into it and care, I'm only able to express the things that I think that I've seen so many iterations of. Hey man, I really had a great vacation in Madrid, so I'm going to open a Spanish restaurant. Yeah, you could do that, and you can study, and you can make that happen. But that's just not my passion. What I want to do is I want to express the best of what we have here, and those things will adapt and change also according to, like, what our guests respond to. I know that, and the pretzels. I'm from Philadelphia.
It's a novelty thing. I mean, it makes sense.
Well, and also it's
a
piece of bread service that's going to be beautiful on a bar. With it's kind of an homage to the neighborhood that we're in and the place that I come from. You know, I think that
it's a good entry point.
I bashed my head off it sideways 6 different ways, and I remember with Echo even, you know, was kind of saying, you know, you certainly have a responsibility to give your guests the thing that they're looking for, and if I was from some specific village in, you know, somewhere, then the village of Harleysville outside of Philadelphia has no specific cuisine you need to know about. So for me, and I don't have that ethnic culinary heritage in my family. You know, my grandparents are Depression era folks that. So for me, what it comes down to is where my heritage is. My heritage is a heritage of, like, hospitality, meaning that you're going to put a beautiful spread in front of people that communicates the fact that you're happy that they're there, and creating a celebration out of what's available to you. In the winter, it's a celebration of the fact that we're enduring this cold weather, and that we're going to take all these great these great values of preservation, and like develop all these great deep flavors that are going to help us endure the winter. And in the spring, it's celebrating the bounty through the summer, the vibrancy of the season. And so for me, that kind of, some of that has to speak to you first before you can like articulate it on the plate. But I think that beyond that, it's I think it's just about saying, I want to celebrate what hospitality really is. That starts by taking care of the people that work with you every day, starting to have that enthusiasm and like communicating with each other, supporting each other, and then getting out there and the flavors. I think that it's undeniable when people really enjoy what they're doing and are excited about the product.
Makes sense.
That comes across in a big way.
Well, with the wines or anything else, any staples you guys going to have in that regard? It's still going to be seasonal as far as the food goes.
There's a few like non-negotiables that we both really, really like, and there's a few things that I really like that he doesn't. There's a few things that he really likes that I don't. But one of the things, working with Rob McConkey now he's strictly with WSUT, is you can establish whether something is not necessarily good, but if it is without fault, and you can judge it unbiasedly, saying, is this in balance? Is this with the season? Is this with the style that it is saying it is in the region, using the methods that they're known for? Then, if it's something using dark spiced rum and, I don't know, beet juice, not necessarily something like I never gravitate towards, but if it's something that's a beautiful cocktail and it boils down, I can understand that respect. It might not be something I sit and drink at the end of the night, but I can still understand and respect where it's coming from. And that's where you get into your aspects of service, saying, it's a beautifully balanced cocktail using these ingredients, or it's a beautiful wine. However, when people ask me about Rieslings, it's tough sometimes because I'm not necessarily the biggest Riesling drinker. It's not something I really gravitate towards, but a good solid Riesling, and a representation of what a Riesling can be, from bone dry to very, very sweet. If you break it down and you go from like your tasting perspective, you can say, this is a good wine. It might not be something I personally would drink, but if it's a good wine, it's something that someone will drink.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the exciting thing is with such a small space, the restaurants I've worked at, we've had massive storage space and a wine director at every restaurant that's carefully curated the list and maintained inventory. And I've never had to worry about saying like, oh man, I hope we have this after a guest orders it. I know whether we have it or we don't, because they are saying like, hey, we're low on this. We only have 2 of this. The vintage is changing. But with opening,
that'll be your job now.
Yeah. But opening a small place, the reps come out of the woodwork, most of them, pretty willingly. And you say like, all right, well, we're a small place, so instead of ordering 6 cases of this, I want 6 bottles. Let's see how it does. If 6 bottles responds well, we'll expand. If not, we'll get into something else. And I'm excited to have like a dynamic, changing beverage program. The wine list.
Bubbles.
Yeah, lots of bubbles.
It was my one giant. I want
to put bubbles on tap.
One thing that just really that I was always kind of disappointed in, and it remains like a real frustration for me. I don't know why sparkling wine is not a way more prominent piece of service.
Because
no one's ever pissed off when they get them. You think you shouldn't get them, and you're listed.
Because the most manly thing is a pink flute of bubbles. Some people just can't get over.
It's like people. I gotta salute Gradner, and also speedy recovery as well to a good friend, John Gradner.
You've already made the right choice. Now recover.
It's always like.
But he's
you always start with bubbles and then move from there.
But what's a better, like, to me, that's it's a funny, it's a perfect transition from when the relationships work. It's when we have an idea what we're looking for, and a vendor knows what they're excited about, what they want to sell. And I remember with John, we would talk about it back at the old place, and I'm not going to let it go on this one.
But I'm going to stop you for a quick second because you just said a good point. What they're excited about versus what they want to sell.
Right.
And there's a few, like John, who knows his specific clients, knows what they're looking for, doesn't bring them, if you're a restaurant that specializes in bubbles, he doesn't bring you this massive ripping Cabernet. It may be beautiful, but if it's not the right fit for you or the space, he's not going to waste your time with it. So there's
nothing better.
There's an ode to having great reps.
All right. I mean, naturally, the biggest fear you guys both would have is, Siempre fails. None of us want that. Well, I mean, I know what you're most excited for because you can finally, unleash this beast you've been excited about for 3 years now. You've been contemplating it for years and years.
Excitable.
Well, I mean, is it just being able to, formulate your own program and then manage your role? I mean, what are you most excited? How do you pitch this to, your friends and people you want to have on staff?
It always boils down to like you won't. I really struggle to find people that care and are passionate like me, and it goes back to like saying the cigarette butts on the Stecco. Brian's mom, Rini Hammond, was coming in one day, and I was outside with like a small scrub brush and like some soap and cleaner and like scrubbing the stucco because I was probably having a smoke break at the time. And she didn't say anything, but she kind of like paused and then walked in. And I remember she went to you and said like, "Why is he scrubbing the building?" And I wasn't prompted to, but it's finding people that care about something that isn't theirs and treat it and covet it like it is. Theirs.
And
that's what I'm most excited. I want to find people like that. I want to give people the opportunity that I was given. I was 19. I was young. I was green. I made a lot of mistakes and a few big and somewhat grave mistakes that were understood and dealt with, and it allowed me to grow and mature and realize, I went to school for something completely different than this. I went to school for air traffic control, and here I am.
That'd be perfect, actually, for running the floor.
Yeah.
The consequence would be only slightly less dire.
Yeah, and that's something that my family has a long history in air service kind of industry, and it's something I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got into school, but I figured I needed to do something. But
hospitality was there to
like covet me, and I felt it was something that was safe, reliable, money, practical. I could do it with minimal instruction, but I want to give young people or seasoned veterans or older people. I want to give people that opportunity that I was given, and the understanding that I was given and like extended, to grow and to shine and excel. And the thing is, and it'll be hard for me when there's a few people that I really like and respect that when Echo closed, that I was like, I really want you to, when the next thing happens, like please be there. And there's a few I know that won't be. And it'll break my heart, but it's part of like the growing and maturing thing, saying like, I'm really happy that you're happy where you're at, and I'd love to work with you, but I understand why you won't.
And what you have to keep in mind, the one thing that I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for myself certainly, but for you to experience for the first time is when you meet, you've got people in mind, and they won't all be able to make it on board with you. They're in something else, but the thing that's the best is when the people that you never thought were coming. The people you meet for the first time.
You keep saying like, you're going to find that find that person that's like 17, 18, 19 that's going to remind you of you. And that's fucking terrifying to me.
I left
finding someone that's like me, that's hungry like me, because I'm going to be like,
you would hate someone like yourself.
I would.
You need somebody else.
In reality, most people would hate someone like myself.
But the thing is when like when I left Chicago, it was as perfect a place as I could have possibly designed, to work. I was happy, loved the place. It was, like world-class restaurant, objectively. And it was such a, I could have just stayed there, but I feel like that we need to have, I think that having the opportunity to do something and to kind of like spread the culture of like really being enthusiastic about what we do is a reason to do it on its own. and great food and great hospitality will come from that. I think that for these guys, these kids over here, like Will. I mean, Will's near the end of his life. He's 26
I don't know if I'm gonna have
years old.
Will back on the show. Texting during my show, this guy.
I'm sorry, it's people that Neil, it's people that are reaching out to me saying like,
I'm bringing you to my house.
It's people reaching out to me saying like, hey, you really actually just said like pink flutes and man, and I'm like. I'm responding like I'm so glad that you're like tuned in listening to this.
So maybe they're not. So maybe they're not into the Saturday night drink special.
No, it's people that are completely outside of this industry that are saying like, "Oh my God, you're actually saying like what we thought you would say." But no, that's. I'm sorry. I'm yes, I am attached to my device. I'm trying to separate from it. I know it's a frowned upon thing. I am not a texter and driver.
I'm glad to hear though. He's not texting. I listen to the show.
He's not on the clock for me. So
yeah, I'm not a texter and driver. Although I would like to say, since we're talking about texting and distracted, the rate of old people in driving is way more dangerous than texting and driving. I'm just gonna throw that out there real quick.
That's gonna be my podcast next week, actually.
Yeah, you should.
Old people driving and versus millennials texting, which is worse.
It would be great. It would be fantastic. And since I turned 26, I can weigh in on both sides.
Not that you're elderly,
but no. So late.
I love trying to bring it together.
Hey, that's tough being a moderator, man. It's tough hosting this show.
I hear that.
But no. Late May.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll definitely, if you keep take a look at us, it's going to be Siempre Algo PGH.com. We'll definitely start having some more concrete updates. As we
There's photos up there right now of what the bar used to be, or is that just on the Facebook page?
The landing page, which is Siempre Algo PGH, it has the social media little widgets that'll tie you into that. That'll have some updates, but we're starting to kind of like move that over now that we're getting closer to concrete dates. The construction, because it's been such a long process, but the last few weeks are going to come together pretty quickly, and then it's just about literally pulling the liquor license out of safekeeping, getting the inspections done. And since those things are slightly out of our, or more than slightly, we can do our part, but then there are pieces of scheduling that are outside of our hands. I know we're going to make it happen in May. It's just a matter of whether it's second week, third week, but we'll definitely if you keep an eye, or if you go to Siempre Algo PGH.com, you can get onto our mailing list, and you'll get updates sent directly to you. But we'll try to be as overt as possible when we're opening, for sure.
Is the Facebook page primarily spot to go check out updates and all that right now?
Yeah, okay. I would. Yeah, for right now that would be the spot, and I'm about to start getting a little more active with the Twitters and the Instagrams.
Twitter, yeah. So
there's little snippets. There's pictures of like what it was before.
It's all
the old bar is still amazing.
It is. It's really exciting to see the transformation of a space was still showing respect to like what it was before. But yeah, no, it's vastly exciting. But looking forward, I want to see like a space with like beautiful lighting, an amazing bar.
It'll be nice. Glassware
in perfect rows that's all perfect and beautiful crystal, and an amazing kitchen bar with like chefs banging it out, and just like a good vibe.
A pink flute in every hand.
Yeah, a pink flute in every hand, and like some awesome food rolling out of the kitchen, an amazing playlist on
it'll be fun. It'll be
the Sonos speakers.
It's good.
But yeah, some like service is all encompassing. Hospitality is all encompassing, from service, from beverage, food.
We just want to be the kind of place where nobody's unhappy to be, and I don't mean in a utopian like kind of ridiculous way, but that, I mean, of course, the guest well-being is, you wouldn't do it if that wasn't important, but I'm excited about, what I love is collaboration in this thing. I can cook, delicious food at home, but what I want to do is, it's about coming in every day, being excited to work with the people that you work with, coming in, working with great product, showing respect to that, showing respect to each other, really owning this as a profession and not just as a thing that, we're doing until something else.
Not as like a transitive.
I mean, we all have an option to do something else, and if we were properly informed, we generally would have chosen to do so a while ago. So for me, it's about saying, you know what, if we're in, let's go all in. And for me, that means we're going to go all in for the product. We're going to go all in for the collaboration that we have with each other, because that's what we've got. And then and that that always
It's a good foundation,
and that always results in a positive experience for you guys, because it's that kind of goodwill and that kind of enthusiasm. You just
can't fake it,
and you can't contain it.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what you guys do now that you guys are in the kind of finish line, so to speak, the last couple of phases. As an unofficial voice of the Northside, I suppose I can say the Northside's excited for it as well. But definitely East Ohio needs it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it. But honestly, guys, thanks a bunch. Next week, gonna have fellow Northside business owner Don Mahaney from scratch. I know we had to reschedule his episode.
I just met Don last week, and he's
a little pregame.
Yeah, he's an amazing man.
He's intense. He's an intense guy sometimes. But no, actually,
he's another one that like really fucking cares.
Yeah,
Don's a true believer.
He's fiercely passionate.
More of us come out of the woodwork, hopefully.
Yeah,
it's a matter of time. But I'm gonna have him on talking more about basically establishing a restaurant and taking over neighborhood joint, the hardships of that, and still getting more of the actual restaurateur background, because we talk a lot about what it's like to be a front house, back house employee, but we don't shed too much light on what it actually means to run the restaurant, operate the restaurant, and the daily headaches of managing the staff, managing client expectations. It's
well, especially for a guy like him too, being a manager of conscience, an owner of conscience. That's
there's a lot of plates spinning at all times.
You can be a rat bastard, and this is still a tough business. And if you try to do it right, he's definitely taking that on. So I'll be listening.
So no, I'm excited for that one. But as always, guys, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Neil Strubig. It's 86'd Life. Get at us on Facebook. We're on the good old Twitter, and always 7 p.m.s on the YouTube channel for the live stream. Take you guys out with the best music that I know.
Oh, get ready.
Oh, man. It's actually back at the beginning. I had it playing, waiting for you guys to do the segment.